Welcome into the Hawks Eye podcast, and today is one of our first off-season versions of State of the Hawks. It's a live show. We're going to talk all things Seahawks, everything that's gone on, recent news. Mookie Alexander is here to join me, and we also have a surprise for everybody else. We have some special guests that are going to join us after the intro video that I think some of you will remember from our chat. And it'll be a kind of a cool episode that we promised at the end of last season. So, Mookie, how are you doing, my friend?
I'm doing great. I'm going to keep doing great for as long as this is my background. As long as I see that Lombardi trophy in Mike McDonald's hands or somebody from the Seattle Seahawks, I'm going to keep being, as jovial and as happy as can be, because I don't know about you, Bryce, but a few hours before we went live, I just had to rewatch the highlights on defense of that smackdown of the Patriots. And then I rewatched the highlights again, but through the Patriots radio broadcast, and how unbelievably insufferable Scott Zolak has been, continues to be, and forever will be. So I can't get enough of it. I need more of it in my veins. I know that we've got a lot to look forward to this offseason, but I just want to keep reliving what happened with the way the season how it ended up unfolding.
As do I, Mookie, and I always keep going back and watching that 60-minute mic'd up version of the Super Bowl and just watching Drake May in the misery that he was living in of just getting completely and utterly abused by the dark side defense was fantastic. And I think my favorite clip of all time is him getting hit by Mafe, laying on his back, and Vrabel asking if he wants out of the game. And you're not sure if Drake May really wasn't like, yeah, I want out. I'm tapping out now, guys. So we're going to discuss coaches changes. We're going to talk about some Daniel Jeremiah and pre-combine stuff because Mookie had the ability to go on a call today and ask Daniel Jeremiah some questions. We're going to ask, what is it going to take for these Seahawks to repeat and do what the 2014 team did and get back to another Super Bowl? We'll talk a little free agency, and we will touch on at the very end a little bit about who we could potentially see as ownership for the Seahawks going forward, as that is now officially news. And then we will talk with the 12s. But we will get into all of that right after this.
Looks inside, it's caught! Touchdown! Make an extra point! Make a conversion! I don't care what it is! The Seahawks win the game again! Play faking him, Sam is going to roll left. Looking, Sam throw, back of the end zone, is it caught in bounds? It is! Touchdown! Seahawks!
We did not care! It's always been about us and what we do. Now we're going to the Super
Bowl. Well, would you look at that? We have three special guests on the Hawks Eye tonight. We have Amy Holmes, John McGrath, and X-Wing. How you guys doing being on the show for once and not just in the chat?
Oh, I'm awesome.
Glad to be here.
Excited to be here and definitely not nervous in any way.
It's not that bad. Come on. Yeah, exactly. It's not that bad. There's only 49 people watching. We're totally good.
Oh, good.
It's super easy. Don't worry about it. This is the easy part. So let's start off with this, right off the bat for you guys. I'll start with you, X-Wing. What was your favorite moment of this season for the Seattle Seahawks outside of winning the Super Bowl? We're taking that off the table.
I'm going to have the same favorite moment that everybody's going to have, and it's Ernest Jones talking about the quarterback part 1 and part 2. There's a bunch of second place things. I liked Stephanie McDonald in the field looking at Mike and going, so how was your day? That was hilarious. Love her forever. She's awesome. JSN having the angry dad moment with the ref early this season. That was great, but nothing's going to beat Ernest Jones if you got anything to say about my quarterback.
Yeah, that was a pretty good moment, X-Wing. I got to be honest with you. When I heard him say that, and especially the words he chose to use, that was pretty cool. Amy, what about you? Because I know you're an Ernest Jones fan.
That was my number one. I I am beyond an Ernest Jones fan. I have not seen a single thing of him that makes me understand why the Rams got rid of him. I just can't comprehend, although I have spoken to somebody who did had a source inside the team that said it was because they had 80% of what he was already in-house. And I say, mission over, bullshit. That's just crazy. So that's by far my favorite. My other one of the best things was being able to go to that championship game, spending a ridiculous amount of money that I didn't have to go experience that with all the 12s, with friends that were there, meeting new people that I sat next to somebody, like people I didn't even know. I didn't go with anybody. I just grabbed a ticket. And I sat with people I didn't know, and we all celebrated, and it was just a wonderful experience.
Yeah, that does sound cool that you just went, because I remember messaging you that day, and you're like, I'm going to the game. I've decided I'm going to the game. And I thought that was a pretty cool decision.
Sorry, Bryce.
To make. It's all good. It's all good. I had to watch that game. Where was I? I was coaching in Seattle that weekend, and I went and watched in Tacoma at where was it? I think it's called like Roadhouse or something, not Texas Roadhouse, something else, Jimmy Roadhouse or something. And actually was a great experience. It had a massive projector. It was awesome. But that definitely for you, Amy, I think that was probably that would be a pretty cool experience. So what about for you, John? What was your go-to favorite moment from the 2025 Seahawks?
I'd have to say crushing the 49ers was really fun, but beating the Rams in overtime with all the three extra 2-point plays that they've had to finally get the victory over the Rams, that was a highlight for me. That'll be my favorite.
All right, Mookie, I'll ask you, what was your go-to moment?
The win over the Rams in the NFC Championship game. It's kind of my default answer, because if I can't include the Super Bowl, it has to be the game that got Seattle to the Super Bowl, because it meant that I could go to the Super Bowl, or at least Super Bowl week. And also, like, if I pretend I never even went to the Bay Area, just finally slaying the dragon, maybe once and for all, who knows? Like, it's not like the Rams are going to have Stafford forever, thankfully. But the way that they did it, the way that Sam Darnold had to be the catalyst for a victory against a team that had been giving them so many problems over the years, and certainly gave him problems over the past 2 seasons, it was kind of like the closing part of his redemption arc, which is have that nightmare first game against the Rams, not play particularly well through the first 3 quarters in the rematch, and then be heroic from the 4th quarter into overtime. And then he was damn near flawless from start to finish against that Ram defense. And look, Seattle led almost the entire way. And that was not one of the defense's better showings. And that meant it's up to Sam. It's up to Sam to sustain drives, make critical throws, make timely plays, don't give it away, no turnovers. And he did everything that was asked of him and more. He was above and beyond. It's going to go down to the all-time great performances by a Seahawks quarterback, playoffs or otherwise, because of the magnitude of it and just his story in general. So certainly a heart and mouth moment when Nakua I thought he went out of bounds and there would have been a Hail Mary attempt. But once the ref wound the clock and then the replay showed Nakua was out of bounds, inbounds rather, that was the realization that, holy crap, the Seahawks are in the Super Bowl against all the odds, against what everybody except Bryce and John believed was possible. And I guess the Seahawks themselves.
This is great for me. I get to sit here with my fellow Island 13-4 Island member. This is awesome. I don't have to just rely on John in the chat. He's actually here for me. This is great.
I love being here.
Hey, Bryce, can I just tell everybody, if I pop out for a few minutes, it's because I caught the flu at that championship game, and I have been sick for 4 weeks. So if I pop out, I'll pop back in.
Worth it.
All good. I was going to say, it might be the one time Amy goes, it's worth it being sick, but
100%. I would not have changed that for the world.
I think that was the Super Bowl.
I'm going to go, for me, it's interesting. My favorite moment this season, I think, might have to be the wild card game, the divisional game against the Niners. and Sam rolling to his left and firing the ball to JSN after all the speculation all week. Is Sam going to play? Is he going to get through the ghost? He's got an injury, and you had Ryan Clark saying, oh, how convenient. He's got an injury now, and that way if he plays bad, he's got an out, and all the ridiculous takes. And then to watch Sam go out and do that, and just I'd say the entire run Sam went on in the playoffs, not turning the ball over, proving everybody wrong. Like the Ernest Jones is definitely my favorite. This is my other one. I think that moment watching Sam mature and grow and defy everybody that wanted to try and find a way to poke a hole in his story and in his attempt at a massive comeback story, which I think now, in my personal opinion, is the best NFL comeback story of all time. I think that has to be it. And then I'm going to go with something else. It's got to be Ernest Jones at the Super Bowl parade, and his whole statement with the shirt on just kind of was that cherry on top of the season. So that's where I would definitely go with this. So let's move on, everyone, and we'll talk about this. I think this is something that's really kind of obviously very big topic right now. We got to meet Brian Fleury today in a press conference after obviously we all knew Clint Kubiak was moving on, and there's been a bunch of coaching changes. We brought in Daniel Stern, we brought in Zachary Orr, Brian Fleury, and then we were able to retain most of that offensive staff, right? Janoko's the only one that left with Rick Dennison, who we know is now the O-line coach in Vegas. And then we added a new running back coach, which, by the way, his name escapes me currently, which is absolutely horrible. But I'll ask you, I'll go counterclockwise this way. So, John, I'll go with you first. What did you think the minute you saw Brian Fleury's name as he is now the OC of your Seattle Seahawks?
I was kind of surprised by it because it kind of came out of the blue for me. I wasn't expecting it. But looking into his background, I really am excited to have him. I want him to be able to unlock the tight ends in multiple sets. I want him to be able to utilize the running backs out of the backfield more in passing scenarios, which we haven't really done quite as much as some other teams. I think we could really improve on that. And I loved his what he said earlier today. He said, we're going to be as fast and as aggressive and as violent as we can be. And I have been waiting for that for so long. I'm super excited to have him as OC.
Yeah, that was definitely something that stuck out to me. The way he talked a bit sounded very Mike McDonald-ish a little bit, I found. So it's kind of interesting. Amy, what about you? When you saw the news and that was the guy that they picked up, they'd done their
when I saw the news,
guys.
I'm like, who the hell is this guy? Like, I've never heard of this guy before. Nobody, I know, I think Corbin said that he was part of previous looks before, but I never heard that name anywhere. So I knew nothing about it. Having listened to him, I am thrilled. He knows defense. He knows offense. He's done both. That is beyond important. He understands what makes it hard for defenses and what to do. And I think the combination of him with Mike leading him has a good chance to be very, very good, especially given Kubiak's comments about how much Mike really demanded accountability for every single thing that happened. Why did you do this? What this didn't work? What's the plan? All of that kind of stuff I think is going to work really, really well, given the way he talks and the way he communicates. He's a teacher.
Yeah, I think that's one thing that stuck out to me that I really took away from listening to Brian talk today was the fact that he was very detailed and precise in what he said. There wasn't like a misstep. He was to the point, but with that, there was so much context behind being to the point of something, which is something I think, as an OC and stuff is going to be very interesting. But X-Wing, for you, what did you think about this when it finally came out to being that, hey, this guy they randomly interviewed on a Saturday, who I think a lot of us looked at and went, oh, Brian Fleury, okay, they're just doing an outside look at somebody to less than 24 hours later, he's now our offensive coordinator.
Well, first off, if McDonald's doesn't run some kind of McFlurry promotion this offseason with the Seahawks, they're missing out because Yeah, other than that, you can kind of copy paste what Amy just said. Same reaction. Who the hell is this guy? But the more I hear of him, the more I like him. A couple of his, I forget which presser it was, but he said there's some things in this offense that we missed out on last year that we can take advantage of.
Mm-hmm.
That was one of my things I was looking forward to next season that we're going to talk about later is I think all of us felt like even though our offense performed well, they still haven't hit their peak and there's more that can be brought out of that. And at this point, I have complete trust in Mike McDonald and John Schneider. If they say he's the guy, cool, he's the guy. Let's do it.
Mookie, what about you? What did you think of the announcement of Brian Fleury?
Yeah, I think I was a little bit surprised in the sense that I fully expected McDonald to make an internal promotion, especially since that was what was reported by Greg Bell, that they were closing in on having an internal hire, which would have meant essentially one of Janoko, Mac Brown, Justin Outen, or Jake Peets, and it ended up being none of the above. And then you go to Fleury, but you're still going to somebody who's within the familiar offenses that we've seen in the NFC West over the years, a Shanahan offense or McVay offense. And it wasn't like Fleury it's not like he hasn't been a candidate before. He was an offensive coordinator candidate for the Patriots 2 years ago. And maybe it's a good thing because he would have been on the very sunken ship that was the Gerard Mayo season for the Patriots. And he would have been out of a job lickety-split. But I guess this is the right time for him to find a new job and get his first offensive coordinator gig. And based on the press conference, I didn't catch his 7:10 interview, but I did catch the press conference. And I think that he didn't talk in platitudes. Like he said a lot of substantive things. I expect the Kubiak, a lot of what we saw with Kubiak is going to continue with him, and he already said as such. And I am curious to see really the ultimate test for him, the litmus test, is how he does with calling plays, because it's not as much as just call this play, call that play. It's the feel for the game. It's strategic play calling. It's situational stuff. So all of that is going to be something that I'll be very keen to be watching. But Mike McDonald, I think because of the way the Ryan Grubb experience went, I believe he's going to be super hands-on with this offense pretty much forever moving forward. Whether it's Kubiak or whether it's Fleury, he's going to be, as Amy mentioned, he's going to be in the ear of Fleury constantly. As far as, to tell the truth Monday, what worked, what didn't work, how can we improve, what are some things that we got to keep on tinkering with throughout the course of the season. I guess I think the thing that I'm most interested in is how he can handle this running game and what changes he can make to the running game, because Chris Snyder's rushing game was not great this year, and he was the run game coordinator, but also like the offensive line is not the same. They had so many injuries to everybody but McCaffrey that you almost have to take it with a grain of salt. The concept of what Shanahan likes to run over the years still works, and a lot of it is what we already see in Seattle. So I like to see if there are going to be some wrinkles to this rushing game that can take it to another level, because to me, if the running game keeps improving, that takes even less pressure off of Sam and the passing offense, if there is even a slight hint of a step down from the way that this past season went. So again, I'm cautiously optimistic about Brian Fleury. Like Kubiak was more of a known entity, albeit on a limited sample size. But with the way that Fleury has been praised heavily in San Francisco, and how Peter King had mentioned Fleury as a potential offensive coordinator in his column, shout out Rob Staten for mentioning that. I'm definitely intrigued by what Fleury has to offer to the Seahawks offense, because they were good and at times great, but they weren't a great offense as a whole. So if he can take that next step and make them a great offense, then watch out, everybody.
And I think that's the interesting thing with Fleury's background. Like when you look at it, so he gets into the NFL in 2013. He gets in with Buffalo as a quality control coach. Then he goes to Cleveland the following year. He's a linebackers coach there from 2014 to 2015. And then there's like a 4-year gap where he's not actually a coach. That's where he goes and does his analytics stint with Miami. That's not even like listed as a coaching thing. He goes and becomes a analytics guy, and listening to him talk about that was really interesting in his press conference today, because he goes, I really wanted to be involved with the players. Like it's something that, is just so different. But he goes to then step back and do the analytics where I'm looking at the numbers and trends across the league and all. He goes, it really kind of changed my perspective on how to look at the game. And that was something that I found interesting. And I think for coaches, it's a really good opportunity to do that because you get to kind of switch off your coach's brain for a bit and look at it as a bigger picture than just what you're solely focused on with. And what he said, like, I'm solely engaged with those players constantly on getting the most out of them. I don't see the big picture. And I think that also plays into what he said when it came to where are you going to call plays from? Are you going to call plays from the booth or are you going to call them on the field? And listening to how he talked about why he wants to be on the field, I think is another really interesting kind of tidbit about him. Like, he wants that personal engagement with his players where he goes, yeah, it's great. I can be up in the booth and you can kind of tune out the noise a little bit, but I want that engagement with my O-line group and with my receiver group and hear their feedback and stuff. Like, I don't get the feeling from him you're going to get a guy that's going to come in and be a dictator. Well, you get that with some coaches, right? I'm going to come in and I'm going to do it my way, and that's the way we're going to do it. And I think that's what's so key about Outen staying, Benton staying, Pete staying, and adding that kind of group around him is I think it's going to be, as much as, yes, Brian Fleury is calling the plays and has the title offensive coordinator, I think the other key part of this is it's going to be a collective that's really going to make those decisions as a whole, which I think is going to be really interesting because I don't think Brian Fleury is going to be a guy that we're going to see, even if the Seahawks offense does well next year. I don't think he's established himself as much as a coordinator like Clint had to be gone in 1 year.
I really hope you're right because everybody was saying that about Kubiak last year. And
right. And this is where I'll with X-Wing with that, the reason why I'll say is Clint had more play calling experience. As much as Mike said today, it's overrated. NFL teams still look at that, right? And they're going to look and be like, okay, what did Fleury do? 1 year of play calling with a loaded Seattle offense. Is that really enough to, because you got to remember, most teams that fire their coach are not at the top of the food chain. They're at the bottom. How is this guy going to come in and reshape our entire organization? Clint had at least enough of a history to do that. And he went to a franchise like Vegas that has its own problems right now. I also think, and I said this, I think I said it in our text, Mookie, with the syndicate group, that I think Daniel Stern is actually who their in-house replacement will be when Fleury does eventually leave.
Yes, I agree.
Because listening to the way Mike talked about Stern today was interesting when he got asked about him. I don't know if you guys caught that part, but that was an interesting conversational piece.
It seemed very fluid.
Mm-hmm.
They kind of don't know where they're going to put him.
They don't. He's going to be everywhere, as Mike said, involved with the offense, which is interesting.
He's going to have his hands in the cookie jar for sure.
Yeah, which I think is an interesting thing, right? It's an interesting because he's a younger coach, but he comes with 10 years of experience in Baltimore. So what I've heard, because I went and kind of dug around and asked some people, and the word I got back with is some people within the league view him as a Udinsky type, where he's the same kind of evil genius that's developing in the background that's going to know the game inside and out. And I thought it was interesting too when they asked about, I don't know who, it might have been Hawk Blogger that asked about what are they doing with the quarterback coach position. And Mike was kind of like, we're still trying to figure that out. And I was like, there's two things I could see happening. Either they give it to Stern and he's the quarterback coach / whatever other titles they want to give him. Or I wonder if Jake Peets is going to get that title with pass game coordinator.
Yeah, that seems the most likely because I can't imagine they're going to be hiring too many other outside people. And Thomas Hammock, by the way, is the name of the running backs coach. Mm-hmm. So, don't sleep on Hammock. And
Hammock.
Actually, for some people, you do want to sleep on the Hammock. But he could be a key addition. I mean, it's hard to really deeply judge when we get to position coaches, but like his success in Baltimore is something you can't ignore. Justin Forsett had his career year there. The late Alex Collins had his career years in Baltimore as well. And it wasn't like, and Gus Edwards kind of emerged in the 2018 season. So I know Outen got promoted to run game coordinator, and that kind of frees up him from having to be part-time running backs coach. Now he can just focus on the run game stuff, and you have an established running backs coach, former Northern Illinois head coach now in the fold. So it is interesting that this year, after the first couple of years, McDonough wasn't really adding all those former Ravens, whether on the staff or on the roster. Remains to be seen on the roster, but on the staff, we're starting to see some of that Baltimore flavor come in. And obviously, a good chunk of it is the fact that Harbaugh is gone. Now he's with the Giants, so that kind of freed things up for McDonald. But still, they didn't have to go to Seattle, and a couple of them did, including Zach Orr, whom I know the defensive coordinator thing didn't work out with him in Baltimore, but he ain't here to be the DC. And you know, Ken Norton Jr. might not have been one of Seattle's best defensive coordinators, but he's still a hell of a linebackers coach. And Zach Orr could be a good linebackers coach. At least that's the hope. And Kirk Olivadotti is going to have some other roles. So the brain drain, the thoughts of a brain drain with this coaching staff turn out to be greatly exaggerated if all you're losing is Janoko and Dennison, really, and Kubiak, of course.
And Kubiak, yeah.
Yeah, I think that they've gained. It ends up being a net plus in terms of the coaching experience and the coaching abilities that they were able to bring in to offset the people whom they lost.
And the fact that they were able to keep Benton is going to be huge for us.
Yes, that is probably the biggest thing I would say with this coaching group is the fact you were able to keep your offensive line coach for another year. And I don't like this is what I'll say too is continuity is huge. And this is where I think it gets kind of interesting is you look at, okay, do these guys decide to leave next year? The Outons, the Jake Peetses, the Bentons. If it goes well with Fleury, I don't know if some of them leave or not. That's the other interesting thing. Like, really, Outon didn't have OC interviews. Benton didn't have a bunch of potential interviews that we know of or opportunities. And Pete's had the one, I think, was Detroit, wasn't it, that he had the one interview for? That was it. So really, there's a chance that you could have this group together for a while and actually build quite the offensive staff to match. Because I personally think next year in the coaching cycle, Durde and Carl Scott will be gone. And I think that's why you see the Zachary Orr addition is Mike hedging against Durde being gone, because apparently he did interview very well in his interviews.
Oh, he's fantastic.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me at all.
Yeah, or will definitely be in the running for replacing him when he leaves. Absolutely.
All right, well, let's move on to this topic because I think this is an interesting one. Mookie, you're going to lead this segment because you got to jump on a call today with Daniel Jeremiah of NFL Network and kind of talk some, pre-combine stuff. So what were some of the Seahawks stuff that you took away from that? And just in general, what did you take away from that conversation?
Well, I took away that it is very hard to get multiple questions in with Daniel Jeremiah when literally 150 people are on the call. So I'm lucky I got my one question. They told us at the start he had a hard out at noon Pacific. So that meant we had 2 hours with him. We went way over last year. So this is why there was a hard out this year. So I was getting a little nervous when it was 11:30 and I still hadn't, despite having my hand raised, didn't get a question. But I did get my question in, and it pertains to the cornerback situation. More specifically, let's say Reek Wilden leaves, and I think it's more likely than not that he does leave. How would Seattle, with either pick 32 or a day 2 pick, effectively replace Reek? And I specifically said Reek. I'm not saying like Josh Jobe walks. How do you replace Josh Jobe? Like Josh Jobe's a good player, but like he's much more replaceable in terms of traits than Reek. So he did provide a couple of intriguing options. One is Julian Neal from Arkansas. And just because of the size and weight and play style. And he's listed at 6'1.5", 202 pounds. But the one I'm focused more on is Devin Moore out of Florida. And Seattle's got a good history recently with secondary players named Devin. But in terms of Devin Moore from the Gators, he said, quote, right around 6'3", just under 200 pounds. He plays that kind of high side shuffle technique. He's comfortable in press. He can play through the wide receiver to the ball. He's a good blitzer. Watch him against Texas, and he drills Arch Manning in that one, and then has another impressive play in that game where he wheels and finds the ball for a pick. So he kind of gave you that line of scrimmage toughness as well as some ball skills down the field. But he did say that it's not for pick 32. It's more for the bottom of round 2 in terms of finding those types of corners. He did say a couple of days ago, and he reiterated that today, that this is a deep class for cornerbacks in the day 2 range, of which we know Seattle's got picks in round 2 and round 3. They're a little light in day 3 for rounds 4 through 7. My main concern with Moore is that while he's got the better traits to me than Neal in terms of just fluidity for a guy his size and his speed and everything, he does have an injury history on him. He had 2 season-ending shoulder injuries and a concussion, which is why he didn't play more than 7 games until just this past season. So he played all 4 seasons in Florida, but He wasn't a full-time all the way starter until the senior year, of which he was a good part of a bad Florida football team, much in the way that Neal was one of the bright spots on a horrible Arkansas team, a team that really way underperformed. So that to me was something that was notable to me, because we're going to have to be honest with ourselves. Unless they look for corners in free agency through cap casualties or the free agents on the current market, cornerback is going to be a need. And losing Reek also means you're losing the size and all the elite physical traits that he does have. So for all the frustrations with Reek and some of the mental things, there's not another corner on this roster who's 6'3" or 6'4", who runs a 4.2 40 and has got these long arms and can make up ground the way that he can. I mean, Job is 5'11", Witherspoon's 6 foot, and Pritchett is 6 foot. Those guys collectively, they don't jump. They don't have amazing vertical jumps either. So you could see a lot of situations where the coverage might be tight, but the other guy's 6'4", 6'5", and they're just going to get mossed. So I do think that there should be room for a taller corner on this team, and not tall for the sake of tall, but tall and actually good. So I think Devin Moore is somebody I'm going to be paying attention more closely to at the combine. There were a lot of other questions that may have been Seahawks adjacent. I was the only Seahawks representation somehow on the entire call, and that's happened 2 years in a row now. But he did note, like, for teams without a first-round pick, but, teams that are looking at day 2 or day 3, and he kind of ranked the positions from, at the top 3 positions for depth: wide receiver, cornerback, and then a distant third, defensive tackle. And you know that this is also a pretty good draft for defensive tackles, and that all these shell coverages means that we might see a greater emphasis on finding these big bodies on the interior who can help stuff the run with otherwise quote-unquote lighter boxes. I know we've been talking about centers, and while I'm pretty sure Sundell is going to be here to stay, he listed some third-round type players for centers. So Sam Hecht from Kansas State, Jake Slaughter from Florida, Trey Zune III from Texas A&M. Didn't say anything about Mason Jones, interestingly enough, or maybe it just slipped his mind. But he believes that those guys could be like day one starting centers. Running back is another thing that I'm sure Seahawks fans will be talking about, because if they don't retain Kenneth Walker, and we'll talk about that later, you're dealing with essentially no healthy running backs on the roster other than George Holani. And one guy, he says he wouldn't be shocked if he made his way into the back end of the first round, which for Seahawks fans would be pick 32, the best pick in the draft to me, would be Jadarian Price, who is Jeremiah Love's backup at Notre Dame. And he that question was framed from the side of the Denver Broncos, that they kind of need another running back and need a tight end. But if Schneider wants to go the first round running back route again, or maybe trade down, go early second, Jadarian Price could be somebody who could be an option for the Seahawks. Didn't talk a lot about pass rushers really in the Seahawks range, but he did seem very high on Derek Moore from Michigan. And Bryce, you were at the Senior Bowl, and Moore had one of the more impressive reps at the Senior Bowl. So he sees him as a second-round pick. So he, again, Seattle trades down at the end of the first, or trades up in the second from 64 to whatever. He sees Derek Moore as a really talented pass rusher. Other guys, like the obvious ones, Ruben Bain, Mesidor, they'll probably be gone before Seattle's on the clock. He also was a fan of R. Mason Thomas from Oklahoma. Shout out Michael Thompson because of his Oklahoma Sooners homerism. But that would likely be a trade back for a team like the Ravens if they were picking at 14. And if somebody took R. Mason Thomas, it'd be later on in the draft. But I think wide receiver is definitely going to be a position. Wide receiver and corner are going to be the positions that a lot of teams are going to pay close attention to. And incidentally, we finally have to not talk about quarterbacks from the Seahawks perspective. But the fact that Nussmeier, yes, hallelujah. The fact that Nussmeier, Dogzilla Monster is asking, by the way, what is Amy drinking? It's Patriots fans' tears. Anyway,
Water.
That's only because she finished the 49ers fans' tears. The Rams fans' tears are kind of dripping as well.
Oh, God bless.
Yeah,
You got to move up.
But you don't want to be drinking too much salt water. It's not healthy for you. But the fact that there's a big gap between Mendoza and Ty Simpson, essentially. So he says that Ty Simpson in Alabama, he's got the most at stake over the next couple of weeks in terms of his combine performance and how he's going to rise or fall in the draft. It could be relevant to the Seahawks because they're not drafting Ty Simpson, but a team like the Rams with an extra first-round pick absolutely could, in terms of like finding a Stafford successor. But essentially, if Simpson doesn't perform as well as hoped, Mendoza's the only quarterback going in round 1. And then you're going to have from Simpson to Nussmeier, Drew L.R., Carson Beck. I think that tells you the strength of this quarterback class. So it's a good thing that Sam Darnold panned out the way he did, because in the alternate world where Darnold wasn't any good and Milroe looked every bit like a struggling rookie quarterback, this would not have been a draft class for the Seahawks to be taking a flyer on really much of anybody this year.
It's interesting you say that, because this draft class, even though it's a weaker class, Mookie, it seems to kind of actually line up for Seattle, being at pick 32, only having 4 picks, having a very complete roster and very few holes to fill. It's almost like this really lines into Seattle being like, hey, we can just take best player available, if that is a Derek Moore or whoever it is, because we all know that basically from pick 20 down in most drafts, you're getting high round 2 guys. You're not really getting round 1 talent. But we've lived in that world for years, where it was the LJ Colliers and the Jermaine Affettis and all that type of stuff. And really, we got lucky with Gray Zabel being there at 18 and being able to grab him at 18 last year. But no, those are some interesting things. And Derek Moore, yeah, he was phenomenal at Senior Bowl, along with Zion Young and Gabe Jackus from Illinois, were the 3 edges that really stuck out to me. Neil did as a corner as well. So it'll be interesting to see what Seattle does. But
hey, if/when we sign Marlon Humphreys, do we still even go after a corner in the draft?
I would say they probably still do, because if you think about it this way, say Reek walks and say Job actually walks, because there is a possibility Job could potentially get out of what Seattle's willing to pay for what he gets on the market. Spoon and Pritchett are your only corners really left on the roster, because Shaq's contract's gone and Sean Charles's contract is gone as well. So you've only got 2. I could see if they sign Humphrey and then they draft a guy, and then they're still looking to sign depth piece in there to fill out for camp. Like, it's an interesting situation, that cornerback room, because we went from it at the beginning of this offseason as, wow, look at the strength that it is. We got Spoon, we got Job, we've got all these guys, to now going, wow, holy, like, we've got to actually figure out this room, because now it's very depleted rather quickly. So I do agree with you, X-Wing. I do think Marlon Humphrey is going to end up being a Seahawk. I would wish Baltimore would cut him already so we could just sign him and get that over and done with, and it doesn't affect comp picks. But
the fact that he just showed up and was part of the parade. Yeah.
Well, I think he was in Seattle. I think he was in Seattle, actually, if I'm not mistaken. Someone posted he was in Seattle on the Sunday of the Super Bowl. Like, he's been hanging out in Seattle for more than just a couple days, I think, prior to that. Like, he was around the area.
Was fire, right?
Yeah, no kidding, right? Like, I'm just going to randomly be in Seattle when the Seahawks are in the Super Bowl and there's a parade. I'm just going to kind of hang out. Yeah, it was interesting. But no, Mookie, that's some interesting insight for sure, especially from Daniel Jeremiah. So appreciate that. But all right, let's have a tough discussion, everyone. What'll it take for this team to repeat? And Amy, I'll start with you. In your mind, what does Seattle need to do to be able to repeat and get back to the Super Bowl for Super Bowl 61?
To repeat. Their offense needs to take a step forward so that the defense doesn't necessarily need to be the number 1 defense. Although I wish it were. If we kind of meshed the run game that we had at the end of the season with the pass game that we had at the beginning of the season a little bit more, not either one going crazy necessarily, but just enough to keep that going, then I think that we have a pretty good chance to do pretty well.
Okay, actually, I really think that's a good point about the offense for sure, and I think that's something that we need to definitely take a step, and hopefully Fleury can do that. Like, whether it's involving getting more receivers involved, like the tight ends, so we're not just solely relying on JSN, which we did a little bit better of. But I would tend to agree with you. I think the offense does need to take a step. What about for you, John? What needs to take a step for the Seahawks to repeat?
They need to definitely maintain their defensive status where they're at right now. They need to be aggressive. They need to they need to find somebody, in my opinion, as on the defensive end, a closer, somebody who can help in that frame of mind. I know Mike's been looking for somebody like that. I don't think they'll get Crosby, but I think he might be able to get somebody who's played with him. There's a guy from the Ravens they were talking about a few weeks ago that he might be available. I could see something like that happening, and that would be fine. That would work. But I think the offense is going to take a huge step forward. I think the offense with the tight ends are. I think Arroyo is going to have a breakout year. I just see that happening now with Fleury. I don't think the defense, they're going to have to rely so much on the defense. I think it'll be more blended where the defense, like I said, might not have to take a step back, just stay relative par where it's at, but the offense take a step or two forward, more explosive plays, be more aggressive. And I think that's the key for it. And obviously beat the 49ers and the Rams again, because you can't get there unless you win your division. So I think we do that again as well.
I would agree with those two. And yeah, that gauntlet's going to be tough again. Like, I think the 49ers, as much as they've got their injury issues, I think there's a chance they're going to be back. It'll be interesting to see, though. I think for them,
they are always competitive.
They are, and I think it'll be interesting to see how Raheem Morris's defensive style affects that team, because he likes to blitz a lot more than what Saleh does, and he doesn't like to sit in cover three. And that team basically, and I think this is where I'll say this about the 49ers. I think they may have made a misjudgment in how they addressed last year's offseason and draft, because they really gave Robert Saleh, kind of a big hold of that. And they drafted guys that really fit Robert Saleh's style of defense in the wide nine and things he likes to do. And now he's gone. And some of those guys may not fit into what Raheem Morris likes to do as much. And so now you're kind of stuck in this weird in between, especially with aging players like a Fred Warner, like a Nick Bosa. They may get Joey Bosa. Who knows? He may end up there playing with his brother. But I don't know how that mesh is going to work and how that's going to work on their defensive side. It's going to be interesting to see how that kind of transpires for them down there. But yeah, no, the Rams are going to be, as much as I hate to say it, the Rams are going to be our biggest thorn in our side next year for the NFC Championship again.
And I may be one of the few Seahawks fans out there. I really enjoyed the 49er rivalry that we had back in the LOB days. And I'm actually happy to see that come back with Purdy and everybody else. I like that competition. Iron sharpens iron. You got to go against the best. I love that. I love being able to beat the Rams now. We're on par with them. I think we have their number as well too now. I think with Pete, when he was here, he kind of just wanted to grind out the clock, and he wasn't very aggressive in a lot of situations against the Rams and the 49ers. I don't see that with McDonald at all. I think he's got their numbers. He's figured them out. And poaching from the 49ers to get Fleury is just going to help. We're going to be a lot tougher to beat, and we're going to be a lot more dynamic in our offense and defense because, as Amy said, he knows defense as well. So
yeah,
you can't go wrong with that.
It's going to be interesting. I got to bring up one comment that's really funny here because I brought up the Joey Bosa name. And that's from HHG. Goes, Joey Bosa's injury history in the substation doesn't seem like a good combo. That's very fair. I'll give you that. That's not a good combo you want to mess with. But so X-Wing, for you, what do the Seahawks need to do to repeat?
I've got one want and two needs. The needs are going to sound really familiar because it's what Amy and John just talked about. The want, I want to see Kenny McIntosh actually come out and do something.
Yes.
I feel so bad for the kid. Like he's more than earned his shot. I want to see him actually participate. As far as the needs, I had offense needs to take the year 2 jump, which we've already talked about how excited we are about Fleury and how we're hopeful that he can take, like we said, the offense didn't do bad last year, but it could still have the potential to do more than it did. And then the other thing I wrote down was Mike gets his edge closer. Whether that's the Max Crosby trade, which I think that window's closed. I don't think we have the ammo to do that anymore. Whether that's signing a Hendrickson and you're okay with him being old and it's just a 1-2 year deal, whether that's drafting somebody, I don't know. But finally get Mike his edge closure.
Yeah, the edge closer is an interesting one because that group, and it's, everything I've been hearing is Mafe is going to get a big deal. This isn't like he's going to get some
Not from
1 year
us, he
prove it
won't.
deal somewhere. But yeah, not from us, but he will get it on that open market. I think when Mafe's deal comes in, it will actually probably surprise the majority of Seahawk fans at the number that he will get.
Yeah. I think one thing we are missing is that big time defensive end who can take over games and wreck games and people have to account for. We haven't had that in a long time, and I think that's the one piece that we've been missing. We get that, and I think Mike can do amazing things if he gets that one piece.
I'm not entirely sure about that because I think part of the reason our edges didn't do as well as you would have expected them to is because our interior was superb. When you have the center of the line able to do what they did, the edge players don't get there. They create the pressures that keep them in there, but they didn't have time to get there. I don't know. I'm just not entirely sure that's correct. Not that it can't be, but I'm not certain.
I'll say this. It's interesting the different edge type of players that Pete wanted and Mike want. And the one thing I'll say is with Mike's simulated pressures and what they like to do, they expect their edges to set the run first and then basically be big bull rushers off the edge. Like you look at what Tank did this year, you look at Derek Hall, they're not necessarily finesse speed rushers. They're really much big, powerful guys that basically bull rush and then kind of close in on the pocket and you get that interior pressure. I agree. I think the Crosby situation's done. I don't think that's happening, especially with what the rumored price is, which is like kind of what Micah Parsons went for. I don't see that being the case. What I will say is I do expect them to take an edge higher in the draft than people may expect. I also do think they may still look to go and trade for a young edge that maybe we're not thinking about that's on the market. If Mike really does need a closing type of player, I could see them doing that potentially.
And one of the good things about that is John Schneider can fleece other teams. He's proven it before and get good players, and he can find gems that you may not be aware of in not just the draft, but in free agency as well.
Yeah, it'll be an interesting situation to see what the Seahawks do. Like, so Mookie, for you, what do the Seahawks need to do to repeat?
I think they need to win more games than they lose. So that's step one.
Brilliant.
Bravo, sir. Way to go. Way to really stretch that.
They have to seriously consider outscoring their playoff opponents.
Captain Obvious, right?
And then doing the same. In all seriousness, I'm of the opinion that this is just a math thing. It is more likely that the defense is going to take a step back or two than they are going to maintain being the best defense in the NFL or improve upon that and be one of the best defenses we've ever seen. Now, people gave me crap for this on Twitter, but like first to second is still an elite defense. This is exactly what happened to the 2014 Seahawks. So you lose Browner, but Browner was pretty much benched after Maxwell replaced him. But you lose Browner, you lose Clemens, you lose Big Red Bryant, you lose a few guys. But the defense still had some cracks, but they were still outstanding. They made the Super Bowl through, let's face it, a whole lot of luck with that Green Bay game. But also, like, part of the reason why they didn't win the Super Bowl is the offense was just not as good as the year before. The running game was way better, but the passing game clearly took steps back. We were witness to the play calls being run for Brian Walters because Percy Harvin didn't want to be in the game. And by the end of the season, they had nothing but undrafted free agents at receiver, which certainly wasn't the plan. So I think the offense has to improve enough, as Amy mentioned, such that if the defense does take a step back, and they're still a very, very good defense, if not an elite one, if the defense does take a step back, it doesn't completely kill them. And I think this offense has the potential to get better, particularly as it pertains to straight drop back passing. So the non-play action stuff has to get better. The fact that the teams that blitzed Sam the most this year were New England, Carolina, and Minnesota, and Seattle really didn't perform particularly well in the passing game in any of them, tells you that there's still work to be done on that front. So yeah, I think the offense does need to be, to me, in the top 10 or maybe closer to top 5 than top 10. They were kind of 10th or 11th in DVOA this year. If they're close to top 5, that should be the base for them to continue to be a contender. On the
They were
defense,
what, like 7? I think they were
7?
7. Yeah.
There was something. Yeah, I would take 7 as well. But I was about to say, for the defensive side of the ball, let's say they lose Reek, secondary might get worse because the odds of a rookie cornerback or 2026 Marlon Humphrey being as good or better than Reek right away are not high. But they can again mitigate that by having a game-changing edge rusher. I don't think they'll get Max Crosby. It's not like the Seahawks are the only team that would be interested in him.
I do think JSN, or I'm sorry, John Schneider will circle back to that and try again. I think he definitely will try to get Crosby, but I agree. I don't think he'll be able to pull that off.
Yeah, if JSN was the general manager, then you know what? He's basically another offensive player of the year and a Super Bowl MVP away from me saying, you know what? Maybe he should get front office say. But yeah, Max Crosby to the Chicago Bears, for example, or the soon-to-be Indiana Bears. Like that's to me is a move that I could see happening because the Bears just don't have a true edge rusher themselves. But for Seattle, like a Jalen Phillips, who kind of has revived his career up to that Achilles rupture. If he hits free agency, the Eagles let him walk. Like to me, Seattle could go after him. They could go after Bradley Chubb. I was against trading for Chubb, but signing him on a cheap deal, absolutely, I think that makes sense if you're going to lose Mafe. I don't.
I still don't think that going after Trey Hendrickson would be a bad idea either. To be honest, I know he's older, but he had back-to-back. What was it? 14 seasons not too long ago. I mean, he's still got some juice, so he could be a decent player. Not that he'd be great, but he'd be an option.
I think the problem with Hendrickson is that he's not a true outside linebacker type. I wouldn't want him dropping in coverage the way that
no.
So he'd be more pegged as just a true pass rushing guy and not anything
Correct.
else. And I don't think Hendrickson is as good as defending the run as say Tank Lawrence. But if they can keep finding an injection of defensive talent, knowing that you got some of your best guys might be leaving and some of them are getting a year older in their 30s, like Big Cat or Jaron Reed or DeMarcus Lawrence, then if you keep finding those guys, you're going to stay competitive. Like a lot of it is a crapshoot. When it comes to repeating, it's hard. It's hard as hell for a variety of reasons, which is why I didn't say as long as they stay healthy, because that's a no shit Sherlock moment. But in terms of just getting better, that's the key to me in terms of getting better on offense.
And to add to that, I think with Schneider and with McDonald, we have a great chance of doing just that. They are the best GM and head coach, in my opinion, in the NFL. And just having them gives us that opportunity to not only repeat, but improve upon what we just did this last season as far as stats and wins.
For me, for this, first off, I'll say this just because we've got two of our moderators in the chat. Keep the topics in the chat on football. I am sick and tired of having to go in there right now and take a certain individual out that is constantly putting in political crap into the chat. This isn't about that. You want to talk football, you're more than welcome to be here as long as it's respectful. It's not rude. And as Amy always says, it's not caps. But if you're not going to do that, you will constantly keep getting banned, and eventually it'll just become a very closed circuit group that's allowed in the chat. So I'm just going to put that out there now. I'm tired of doing it. This is supposed to be a fun pod where we're having a bunch of people on that get an opportunity to actually be here and be a part of the pod. Don't ruin it for everybody else.
Exactly.
So with that being said, for me, for the Seahawks to repeat, they have to stay healthy. That's the biggest thing for me. And I know as Mookie would probably, he's going to call me out for not saying that's a real stretch, but that's one thing that I think in some respects hurt that 2014 team a bit, was the health throughout that year of some of the key players throughout it. Especially on that offensive line, because I think Max Unger missed some games that year and stuff. Like it got to be a bit of an issue. They got to stay healthy. The offense has to take a jump. Everyone's tagged on that one. I think the one thing I want to see too is the special teams has to maintain the level of play. We talk about the offense being able to pick up the defense. I think a big part of that was the special teams unit was just so good this year. I don't think we've ever had a special teams unit that good, even on those Legion of Boom and the Super Bowl.
Do you think they'll re-sign Myers?
That's going to be an interesting one. I think they could.
Yeah.
It depends what Myers wants, right? We're talking about the guy that just set the NFL scoring record for an entire season. you know,
He might
it'll
not
be
want to
interesting.
take a home field advantage type deal, and he might want to get a bag too, just like Freak. You know.
So, you know, it's an interesting thing, and it's one of those things where I could see them re-signing him to like a 2-year deal, and still make him the highest paid, but on a 2-year with incentives to it and everything, and then even still bring in a rookie kicker to compete potentially. Because I'll say this, Michael Dixon's ability to flip the field this year really helped that defense at points and this offense get out
Dixon
of
was
jams.
awesome. Dixon and Myers were awesome, especially in the playoffs.
And I
Mookie-
say we get to keep Jay for one more year.
Yeah, I would say, yeah, you do have him theoretically for one more, right? He's still on.
Oh,
his
not
last
Jay
year of deal.
Mai. Jay Harbaugh.
Jay
Jay Harbaugh. One more
Giving him
year.
a year. You're giving him a year.
I'm
Amy?
giving
It's
him a
not
whole. He proved me wrong.
Wow.
I wanted him gone in preseason. I wanted him gone in preseason. I was like, this guy
I
is
was-
not
I
doing
was with
anything.
you.
I was
Yeah,
with
I'm with
you.
And he proved me completely wrong. He gets an entire year to do whatever he does.
I agree.
I'll give him.
Shaheed.
I'll give him half a year. I'll reevaluate at a half-year mark.
I remember so many people were just dogging on him at the beginning and middle part of the year, and then the way he turned the special teams around, I absolutely agree. He definitely deserves to get another year at least.
I'll say this: when we were at camp, me and Mookie stood there for what was it, Mookie? About 15 minutes watching Jason Myers kick, and all he did for an entire time that me and Mookie were watching was miss left. And me and Mookie looked at each other and we're like, "This could be a very bad omen." Oh, bad! And it was like he was on the right hash and he was missing left, so he was like full on swiping it right across
He
the
needs to
goalpost.
smell himself more.
Yeah, I looked at Mookie. I was like, is he intentionally doing this, do you think? And Mookie's like, hope not. Oh, man.
That would be a baller move, though, to just miss in practice and everybody thinks, oh, he's not going to make it, and then just right down the middle during the game.
No kidding, right?
I don't think our special teams are anywhere near as successful as we don't bring back Shaheed.
I think we'll do that. I don't think Shaheed's going anywhere. I know a lot of other fans are saying, oh, we're going to get Shaheed. We're going to get Shaheed. No, you're not. He's not going anywhere. He wants to be here. We want him here. Shaheed's going to get paid to stay here.
Don't forget about Torrey Horton. And that's the interesting caveat, because Horton up until that point was just almost as effective in getting into a groove doing it. This is where it's going to be really interesting for me with what Seattle does, because you've got, and it perfectly kind of goes into this. So we'll talk a little bit about free agency and more about what Seattle does on their own, not what they bring in. But you look at the receiver room, for example, right? I think Jake Bobo's contract's up at the end of this league year. I'm pretty sure, if I'm not mistaken, Mookie, I'm pretty sure he's up. Yeah. Derek Young will be up, I'm pretty sure as well. So you've got, Cody White's going to be up. So really you got Ricky White, you've got JSN, and Torrey Horton. That's kind of your group and that you've got. And so, this is where it's going to be interesting to see how they do it. Because my concern still with Horton is just size in his lower area, like his lower legs. Because, like, I kind of
don't you imagine he'll work on that during the offseason, though?
Yeah,
I mean, he couldn't. He was trying to get back for this season.
True, and that's going to be a big thing to see, like, that he's healthy, if he can do that and add some size there. Because, like, I think I saw that hit in the Commanders game where the injury occurred, and it was a pretty innocent hit. Like, it's just, like, kind of two colliding legs. And then to have the shin, what I think is he broke his shin and didn't realize it until he got to practice that week. But, there's that. There's, Cooper Kupp's a year older, and they just let his contract vest into next year, so he's probably going to be on your roster unless he surprises you and goes, "Hey, I'm retiring now," which I don't think he's doing.
He'll be here.
No.
So now it's like, okay, and to Mookie's point with what Daniel Jeremiah said about receivers, like when I was at Senior Bowl, I saw a few receivers. I was like, yeah, these guys could fit in Seattle's offense, but it's again like, do you bring Jake Bobo back on a deal? Do you bring Derek Young back on a deal for a 1 year and special teams kind of because they impact special teams?
So many options at wide receiver finally.
It is. I won't argue with you on that. It'll be interesting, but we'll go clockwise on this one. X-Wing, I'll start with you. Give me your top 3 on priority signings for the Seahawks, but how realistic you actually think it is.
For me, I still think Shaheed is going to be at the top of the list. I know we've got some other good, fast guys, but he's just on a slightly different level than the rest of our people. Torrey Horton is right there behind him, but Shaheed's got a little bit more experience. I don't know if I want to put K9 in the top 3 just because I know there's a couple guys in the draft that I know you're really high on. I'm blanking on his name, the kid from UW.
Jonah Coleman.
Jonah Coleman.
Yeah. I don't.
Bryce is big on Coleman.
I actually had a question for you about that. Everybody is going to say Tyler Linderbaum from Baltimore if they actually let him go. I kind of put that in the same bucket as Max Crosby. It'd be nice, but I think there's other people out there that can make a bigger offer than we can. I've seen a couple tweets already of there's a few people that think the Raiders are going to back the money truck up for Linderbaum. If that happens, do you then go after JPJ?
Did you see that Linderbaum has a worse pressure rating than Sundell?
I had not seen that. No.
Yeah, he's all the way. He's almost all the way at the bottom.
He's old. He's getting old.
Yeah, I'll trust John Schneider on when it comes to him, but I'm of the opinion that we keep Sundell. The only question mark is if JPJ pops free, do you go after him?
Yeah.
Ooh,
I think JPJ would be a fantastic addition to this offensive line because he can play multiple positions. He can play center, but I believe he can play guard too reasonably well.
Amy, I'll go to you. What are your thoughts? Who are your top 3 and likelihood?
Top 3, personally, Reek. I would love to have him back. I know it's unlikely. Likelihood, right now, I'm saying 50-50. Because I watch him with Spoon. They're tight. He has been unlocked. I'm concerned that if he goes somewhere else and doesn't have the structure around him, that it's not going to go as well as he wants. Now, I think a lot of this depends on what you prioritize. If you prioritize the money, then it's probably not here. If you prioritize being around people that you enjoy, playing the game that you love, and still getting paid a whole lot of money, then he stays.
Okay.
So I kind of think that's a 50-50. And I know lots of people are like, he's already gone. I don't know. Then I would probably go Shaheed because he opens up the run game by being on the field.
Right.
Not. I mean, he can have. We haven't even seen a great passing game with him, really. I mean, we saw one play that was great. Other than obviously his returning ability is exceptional. But I think he makes a lot of sense to try to keep. And then I would probably go after that. I would go K9. And that's only, I like K9. And watching him, he changed my mind a bit, I will say, in that, in the Super Bowl, watching him pause and figure out to wait and hit. Because that was, I'm trying to remember, I think it was at the Vikings game maybe that I was watching, and I was furious because he just wouldn't hit the hole. And there were holes there to be taken, and he was rushing, and he would be there before the hole opened. And so I really think that given the Sharps injury, I think K9 is pretty important. Do I think that we can get another running back that will be able to do things in this offense? Yeah, I do. I think, we have a few waiting in the wings, but we don't know about them. But I think given the Sharps injury, I would really put him number 3.
Okay. I kind of like that list. That's an interesting way. John, what about you?
I say Joe. Joe would be my number 1 to sign because I don't think you're going to keep Reek. I really don't. I think he's gone. So I think Joe is key to get him back. I also think we could get like Mookie was saying, somebody like Phillips or someone like that. That would really help out our defense as well. I also think, I know it's not popular, but everybody wants continuity. I want a replacement for Bradford. I don't like Bradford. I've been up and down with him, and I'm sorry, I cannot get. For every good play he's got like 3 or 4 where he just turns his back and lets a guy run right past him and get a free shot on my boy Sam. And no, I can't do that no more.
You waited a whole hour, John. I'm proud of you.
I'm so proud of you. I was waiting for it.
And I think we'll be fine at running back. I really do, because I think we keep K9 and we'll have Halani, who's a really good runner. And like X-Wing says, I am super, super excited to see what McIntosh can do. I'm a big McIntosh supporter, and I think he'll be fantastic.
Okay. I'm very proud that you had that much restraint, John, for an hour and 6 minutes not to bring
I've been patient.
You've been so patient. I'm so proud of you, John. I'm so proud of you, John. All right.
But I couldn't let a whole show go without saying.
I know. I was waiting for it. I was like, okay, we're gonna have this discussion. It's gonna happen. All right.
That's
Mookie,
like the one sore spot on the offense for me is Bradford. And I also want to add, next year it's gonna with Horton coming back, with the Royal hopefully having a breakout year, McIntosh. I think this offense, as I said earlier, will take an extra step or 2, and McFlurry will definitely be able to unlock those guys and make that happen.
All right, Mookie, give me your 3 in likelihood.
Yeah, so I'm only focusing. Well, I'll focus on the unrestricted, which are only 9 players. So as I wrote on Twitter the other day, I want to keep Reek, Shaheed, and K9. Somebody in the comments, might be John Bello, mentioned something about the franchise tag. Seattle's almost certainly not using the tag.
No.
For a couple reasons. One,
No way.
the minute that you do that, that money comes off your cap. So,
yeah.
And let's say they tag Walker. $14.5 million is what the projected total. I mean, most running backs rarely tag and then get an extension. So if you're tagging, it's probably 1 year and then he's gone anyway. And that's just not how Schneider operates. These tag 2 players, Olindo Mare, which in hindsight kind of looks silly, but that was like his first year on the job, and he didn't stay. And then they tag Frank Clark, and they tagged him to trade him and get, a first-round pick out of Kansas City, which turned into LJ Collier. So, that part of the deal aside, franchise tag is not going to be a thing. I want to keep Walker in part because of the Charbonnet injury, but also because now that he's in a groove in this system, I think he can be a top 10 back. I also not sure that he's going to be as expensive as people think, especially when you consider the injury history he had the first few years of his career and the fact that he really wasn't running back 1 consistently throughout this season and had to split time with Charbonnet. I don't think that just vaults him suddenly into being like a top 3, top 4 paid running back. He doesn't have that history, I think, to justify that contract. Kind of the same with Shaheed, too. Like Alec Pierce, I think, is going to be one of the top free agents for sure. And Pierce is somebody who could, I think, get north of 20-something million. I don't think Shaheed touches that. I don't think Shaheed really touches that number. With the cap space Seattle has available, even if they extend, let's say, JSN or Spoon, that should be doable. Reek, I don't think stays. I don't think he stays, even though I want him to stay. Kind of living with some of the frustrations I have with him with certain penalties he commits. Although I think it's the taunting stuff. The NFL just
turn their head around. How many times do we got to yell that?
He can turn his head around, but his
just doesn't do it.
His tackling's gotten better. His coverage and it has been probably the best of his career. He hasn't got the picks to show for it. It's not like they're targeting him heavily. It's just the lapses in concentration kind of remind people of DK, but for defense. And I guess that's kind of the thing that people have with Reek, but I don't think he's going to stay, so it might be moot. For people who are not unrestricted, who are restricted free agents, Bobo and Derek, I think they keep one out of those two. And in fact, I believe that Derek is unrestricted. So Derek, I think, could stay on a cheap deal just as that special teams gunner. Anybody who thinks he's going to be like a greater part of the offense is living in a fantasy world. 6 targets
Now
in 4
with
years.
Horton coming back.
Yeah, now with Horton coming back, you might draft a receiver. Who knows? I think Bobo could be tendered at a low end for as a restricted free agent. And again, it's just the blocking aspect. So like Daniel Jeremiah's mock draft had Casey Concepcion to Texas A&M going to Seattle. I think that'd be very much a luxury pick thing, and that's on the assumption Shaheed doesn't stay. Concepcion's drop rate worries me, and that's normally something that does not fix itself in college. It fixed itself in the NFL very well. So, that's kind of my feeling for free agency is that if we can keep Walker and keep Shaheed, great. Keeping Reek would be totally unexpected to me. And if they don't keep Reek, then re-sign Job. Don't let it be DJ Reed all over again, where you kind of let your best corner walk. In this case, Job isn't their best corner, but he's a DJ Reed type corner to me, who is a very good cornerback too. And he's still got very good value in this defense. And he was outstanding in the Super Bowl. I will ignore the little scuffle with Stephon Diggs, who's got much worse things to worry about. But the actual game performance with Josh Job was one of the best of his career.
All right. Well, you guys kind of just stole all the thunder because, like, that's the majority. I got to be creative here. This is the problem with being the host of the show. I get to go last most of the time. So I'm going to go first off for me, priority-wise, I'm going to go with Job. I think you got to get Job done. I think Shaheed's I love Shaheed, and I think he is top priority for them. But the reason why I'm putting him at 2 is you do have Torrey Horton coming back. You do have the number 1 receiver in the NFL in JSN. It's not like he is a number 1 receiver that you're trying to keep on your roster because your roster's that bad at the receiver position. I think he's 2 for me. And this is going to surprise some people. Number 3 for me is Josh Jones. He's my 3rd one. And the reason why I say that is I think you can get him back on a 2-year deal. But if we don't have Josh Jones play in the games he did when Charles Cross got hurt, I think he saved some of – we would have been in a world of hurt. Sam would have been in a lot more of a world of hurt because
that's right.
I don't know if Amari Kite was ready to play that much where Josh Jones was able to step in and be really serviceable as a swing tackle, which is something – and I'll remind Seahawk fans of the name Stone Forsythe, was something that we struggled with.
Don't do that.
But that's
why
my
do
point.
You have
that's
to hurt me like this.
I'm sorry, X-Wing, but
you're not sorry. Don't lie to me.
I'm sorry. I'm not sorry, but this is the Josh Jones.
Don't bring up Stone. Don't bring up Grove. Those are the off-topic.
But those are. That's why for me, Josh Jones, I think for me goes on number 3. I love K9 and I love what he did. But I think you can replace some of that too. And, Charbonnet does need to get back and be healthy. And I think he can be really good in the system.
And Jones
I also look
bank either.
No. And so you could still get them. But this is why for me out of that list, Shaheed's the biggest value-wise priority guy. I think there's a good chance they can get all of them back. And I think it's also good because Jones can also play guard in a pinch if you need him to. He does have the experience. I just look at it and I go, I don't think you're going to have to break the bank for Job. Reek's going to get big offers on the market. Same with Kobe Bryant. I love Kobe, but I think Ty Okada makes more sense. And I actually thought Ty played better this year than Kobe.
Yeah.
And I agree with you. I wasn't big on Okada at the beginning of the year, but he absolutely changed my mind. He was amazing. He just blossomed this year. Him and Thomas just took it to a whole nother level.
So that's where, for me, I look at it and I kind of go, those are the guys where if Ken comes back, great. But it was interesting because I was listening to Colin Cowherd, and he has some awful takes and he has some good takes. And he's usually pretty connected with Seattle, it seems. But he brought up a point about Ken Walker where, you don't generally see the money value in second contracts get kind of make values sense once they start playing. Ken is in my opinion, he is a below average pass protector and a below average receiver out of the backfield. He struggles. He has moments where he can catch the ball and scurry on a screen, but you can't really put him into concepts down the field. It seems he just struggles with that. And I think there's some guys. But I'm just looking at it from this. I think you can get some guys in the draft maybe that are going to give you some of the same explosiveness, but maybe are a little bit higher on the blocking and the receiving factor. Maybe they're not as twitchy, but they're enough in this system. And I think that's something where you look at what San Francisco's done down there with, guys like Mason Jordan and some of these other guys that have been running backs in there that have come in for Christian McCaffrey over the years and produced. You can do that in this system. And I think Charbonnet would work. One name for me that I'm still high on is Jacardier Wright. I liked what I saw in the preseason from him. Yeah. I think he could be a very intriguing guy for Seattle going forward into next year. See what he does in the preseason if he can stay healthy. Like, he could be a guy that could push Kenny McIntosh, even though X-Wing brought him up. I think McIntosh, to be brutally honest, I think he's really on the roster bubble next year because that's 2 knee injuries on a running back that wasn't really fast coming out of college.
I have a question for you, Bryce and Mookie.
Yep.
How do you see, with Fleury being the OC now, how much of that offensive scheme does he bring from San Francisco as far as pass catching out of the backfield for running backs? Because, correct me if I'm wrong, but CMC was like the top receiver for them and running rusher for them. Can he do something like that here in Seattle with the running backs we have?
Ooh, Mookie, do you want to go first on this?
I don't know. I think that we could see more passes to running backs. I mean, Walker really improved as a pass catching threat. And it wasn't just screen passes, although that helped because we know our history with this team and screen passes. But he was running wheel routes. He was running angle routes in the middle of the field. He was getting some out routes as a third option for Darnold. And I think that they can get Charbonnet involved in the pass game a little bit more too. If Kenny McIntosh didn't have that injury in training camp, like McIntosh would have been a perfect receiving back for
my thoughts exactly, because he's a great pass catcher out of the backfield, and I was so upset when he got hurt because I like you just said, I'd love to see that. I hope we get to see that because I think he would be excellent in this team.
And I don't know about you guys, but I certainly expected to see more of that at the beginning of the season. I kept waiting for that, thinking, okay, this is a great way, I mean, that's part of the running game, really, to unlock those guys. And I was shocked at how little we did at the beginning of the season. We picked it up as we went along, but it really surprised me.
I think part of that where we didn't see it, because it was something I anticipated with Kamara and what he did in New Orleans. I think he didn't trust the line to hold up, to not keep 6 in for protection. And that's where you saw that not happen, right? You saw a lot of points with Seattle this year where they got into trouble when they went 7-man protections with chips and they got the tight ends and running backs late out into the concepts and Sam had nowhere to go with the ball. It'll be interesting to see what happens with Walker. He could take a hometown discount and stay in Seattle potentially, or he could decide he wants to go somewhere else and test his value in a system that maybe he gets more touches. I don't know. I'd love to have K9 back. I'm not saying I don't want him back. I'm just saying for my priority list is get Shaheed, Job, and Josh Jones re-signed, and we can go from there. But
one more question on the running backs. Yep. If he does leave, if Walker does go somewhere else, who do you see in free agency who could come in and replace him and have similar production or better as far as the pass catching? I've heard a lot of people say they like Breece Hall. I hear a lot of people say A-Chain could come in and replicate what he's done or even be better. What are your thoughts on that?
I think out of those two, I think A-Chain's probably the likelier one because he's coming out of the Mike McDaniel system, which is similar to what San Francisco runs, where Breece Hall kind of, I like Breece Hall. I like what he did coming out of college. I think A-Chain's a bit more explosive and gives you a bit more of a home run threat to complement with a Charbonnet who will be back at some point. And I think that's what Seattle wants, unless they can find a true guy that can do it all. And so for me, if we were looking at it, John, I'd probably lean more into A-Chain being the guy that they go with over a Breece Hall. Mookie, what about you?
Well, Achan's not a free agent yet, so they'd have to trade for him.
Yeah.
And then,
Yeah,
although
yeah,
really
true.
it's a going out of business sale for the Dolphins this offseason.
And I wouldn't put anything past
for
Schneider.
fading
He's
veterans, not
excellent in
necessarily
trading.
for the young talent. But Travis Etienne is a free agent, and he's not really as good as Walker to me, but he can provide value as a receiving back as well. Breece Hall, of course, would be one of the top backs in free agency, and I think he was the running back before Walker in the same draft class. So that would be pretty amusing if he ended up coming to Seattle. And another one, like Javonte Williams, went from this injury-prone running back himself to somebody who kind of revived his career in Dallas under Brian Schottenheimer, and I think that he could be in a pinch and another depth option for the Seahawks. But it's running back. You can you might not be able to replace a guy directly, but if this offense is anything like the old Shanahan offenses, meaning Shanahan the elder and not Kyle, it's the offensive line, if it does its job, can make a lot of running backs become 1,000-yard rushers, like Olandis Gary and Mike Anderson and Reuben Drones and Terrell Davis. One guy's in the Hall of Fame and the other three have no chance ever being in the Hall of Fame.
Do you guys think that they could get one of those free agents we just mentioned for the same price that they could get K9 to come back?
If it's the same price, I'd rather just keep K9.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, exactly. But I'm just saying, cap-wise, do you think they could get him on a similar deal, or are they going to cost more?
I think they'd be cheaper.
They might be cheaper, yeah. You got to think K9's going to ride that Super Bowl MVP down the stretch here. He was, all-purposing over 150 yards in most of the games.
And why shouldn't he?
Exactly. So it'll be one of those things that they'll have to kind of weigh into this offseason on where they value his number. So it'll be interesting. But last thing we'll touch on for a very short time, and then we have a whole bunch of donations and super chats to get to, so we'll get to those. The Seahawks are obviously officially for sale. The whole thing that went on during Super Bowl week, the back and forth, unfortunately, they are for sale. And the one thing I'll say is, if I've learned anything with the Allen family and their ownership, is they're so thorough. I don't see them selling the Seahawks to someone they view as who's going to ruin their legacy and what they've built with the city of Seattle. The more I've heard it be talked about, and the more I got a weird feeling that one of the big names, I am starting to lessen on the Jeff Bezos being a buyer of the Seahawks.
I hope
I'm starting. I got a feeling someone that I think is going to be in the bidding as a quote unquote big name is Steve Ballmer. I think he's going to get involved in this in some way. And I know everyone's talking about all the allegations of what he had with the NBA and everything. I could see that being a situation where he's involved. And, the other thing I could see too, I wonder if Lewicki gets involved somehow too with a group that looks to buy the team as well.
Yeah. As long as they keep it in Seattle. That's my biggest fear is somebody buys it, and if we have a bad year or two, they move it somewhere else.
I don't think, John, I'll be brutally honest, I don't see that as
no, I'm just saying that's my biggest fear.
And I totally respect that being a fear. Here's the reason why I don't think it'll happen from an NFL perspective, because, again, the owner group that deals with people coming and buying teams and relocation would have to sign off on it as a whole. You would lose such a geographical area of the Pacific Northwest, a good chunk of Western Canada. You lose a good chunk of the Western United States, because really your closest team then is either the San Francisco 49ers or it's the Minnesota Vikings. Realistically.
I get what you're saying. My worry there is that somebody like Bezos or Ellison gets a hold of the team, and then if they say, hey, we're not making as much money here, that big market over there is so much better. I could just move them over there.
They have the lease until I think it's 2033 or something like that, or 2032. I can't remember exactly which year. So I can't imagine that they would do that very quickly. Yes, whoever's in the chat, the NBA regrets leaving Seattle. That's for sure. And Seattle regrets them leaving. But also, I honestly don't care who it is, as long as they bring the money in to pay coaches and players, and they stay out of the business and let John and Mike figure the stuff out. I honestly don't care, and I don't think that they will move it. To be frank, I don't think that I think that would be a huge mistake on the NFL's part.
You can also make that a condition of the sale of if you're going to buy the team, you cannot move the team. And I know there's a lot of people that their first reaction was just not Jeff Bezos. I really don't think he's even in the mix. He doesn't even live in Washington anymore. He went the Elon Musk route. He's down in Florida working with Blue Origin, building rocket launchers.
But he's gone after other. So. Didn't he want to be part of Washington when they were getting sold? He was trying to get them, wasn't he?
That was a few years ago. I think his interests have changed.
Yeah,
I'm just saying that somebody who's got the money to do it. I hope when they come in, they love football and they're a fan of football and they're not just doing it for the money, because then I could see them moving wherever it goes and not really giving two craps about what the fans think and the fan base. I hope they actually love the sport and they love the team. They buy it for the right reasons. And like Amy said, be hands off, let the experts run it, but have the money to get things done when they need to be done and be a good owner. And that's what I would look for. On that, I have a question. Is there any rule that says that they have to accept the highest bid? Can they take a lower bid if they want to? Like, my perfect scenario would be Jody buys a team herself with help from a couple other people and keeps it here. I don't think she could come in with like the $10 million. But if she came in a little lower, could they take her off?
I don't think that there's anything that anybody has come up with so far that has said whether that clause is in there. My guess is that Jody cares about the team. She clearly was overjoyed, giving Mike hugs and all of this stuff at the Super Bowl. I think she cares about it. She cares about it because her brother cared about it. I don't think that she's going to do something that's going to be a disservice to the team just because it's the top dollar, unless there is something in that contract or in the will that says it has to go to the top dollar. But my guess is it doesn't. My guess is it just says it needs to be sold and the money goes to charity. And that's
what I was thinking. Yeah,
that's
what I was hoping for. Yeah.
And you know what? In the end of it all, like, again, I don't expect the Allen Trust and Jody and Burt Cold and all of them to make a bad decision here. They're gonna, like, I still believe, and I've said this, I don't know if this team gets sold until the end of the season. That they're gonna go through, because this team, like, you listen to Adam Schefter and he figures this team could go for $10 billion. They're valued at 7 or 8, but you're coming off a Super Bowl. You have the youngest coach one of the youngest coaches in the NFL that's want to be turning into one of the best. You got one of the best GMs in the NFL. You have a rabid fan base. You have good sports teams coming to the area. The NBA is potentially about to come back to Seattle. The Mariners are starting to turn into a solid franchise. The Kraken are still working their way to figure it out, but that is all revenue. And you've got a crazy sports town where even their college sports team that's located in the University of Washington, again, is a good market. Like, there makes no sense to move the team. It makes sense for someone to come in that's going to love sports, that's going to love what the city of Seattle is about. And I think Jody and that group are going to do a good job of vetting that person out and finding the right person to take on the legacy that they've built. Because even like I've said on previous shows, for me, the Allens will always be the quote-unquote owners of the Seattle Seahawks.
I really hope it doesn't go all the way through the season, because that's going to be such a huge distraction.
That's true.
It will be for the fans. It won't be for the players.
No.
Sorry, John?
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I apologize. Is there any clause in the contract that says she can't buy the team herself? Like, I know they have to sell it, but is she prevented from buying the team, Jody?
I don't believe so. I haven't seen the clause obviously up close, but I don't think there's anything that said that they can't. It's one of those things where for her, I think part of it too is I don't know if Jody wants that. I think Jody is ready to pass that on, because realistically the whole fine thing that got talked about, the $5 million and so on, that's chump change for her and that trust, really. I think now that this team has won a Super Bowl, it's kind of finally fully closed the book on this whole thing for her and the family and the trust and everything, that I think she's ready to move on. And I think go on to other things. Like, she loves the Hawks. We know that. We've seen
I was
that.
going to say, I'm not so sure she is, because if you look at how, like, the beginning of the year, she was, a lot of people didn't think she was really into the team or anything. And throughout the season, she got more hyped up about it. You saw her when, and like Amy said, when we had that, she was lifting up that trophy, she was super happy. And it's like a whole transformation of an owner being, in my eyes anyway, being not so invested in the team just because it was her brother's team and she got it, to becoming invested in it and realizing, hey, I like this. I want to do this. I could do this. That's what I saw personally.
Does she have the assets to buy it on her own?
Yeah, that's the question.
She could, but she could get a couple of extra backers and be like a group like Bryce said, and then she could do it.
Yeah.
That's
Mookie, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, Marshawn, Bobby, and Cam all purchase the team.
Right. That would be a dream come true.
Yeah, there should be no worry about the Seahawks moving from Seattle, because remember, the teams that have moved recently in the NFL, so the Raiders moving from Oakland to Vegas, the Rams moving from St. Louis to Los Angeles, or the Chargers moving from San Diego to Los Angeles. A lot of it is just holding the city hostage, like, please fund our new stadium or we're going to walk. And or we're going to pack up and go. And even when the Seahawks almost they were pretty much both feet in the door as far as the move to Anaheim with Ken Behring. When Paul bought the team, Kingdom goes, and they're able to build the state of the art, what we now know as Lumen Field. The Seahawks don't have to worry about that. They've got a state of the art stadium that they've been constantly renovating, so there is no issue on that front. Happens a lot in other sports, like the Jody and their trust just sold the Portland Trail Blazers last year, and there is some local concern here as a Portland resident that we could be watching the Sonics all over again, because that arena, Moda Center, is as old as the Oki Arena used to be, but it has not been renovated. It's the oldest non-renovated arena in the league. So there's a whole thing about using public funds or having the government fund renovations to the arena, and it's certainly got some locals here, some of whom are Sonics transplants, fearing the worst now that the sale is in the process of happening. I don't think that will happen. And if it does, boy, that would suck. And that'd be like for Pacific Northwest.
Are the rumors true? Are we going to be getting our Supersonics back? Because I've heard different things.
Possibly. Don't know. And you know what? The way this league is just, beating around the bush with that, it's so frustrating. But anyway, I think the Seahawks are here to stay. In terms of who buys it, genuinely don't know. I know there's one person I'd rather it not be, but I think that he's not a prime candidate in my books as far as buying the team. But we have to appreciate how much the Seahawks have been able to benefit from stable ownership for about 3 decades. And what I mean by that is there certainly were some rocky moments after Paul died with the way the Seahawks declined, and now they're back on top. But like Jody and Paul, they're not Jerry Jones. Like, that's my one request, is don't have a Jerry Jones type owner who meddles so much and becomes the GM/owner that it starts out pretty well and then completely fades out decades later. But otherwise, for the Seahawks to be saved essentially by Paul Allen and to be on this best run in franchise history, I mean, those were some dark years. And it was before I was born, but those are some dark years that almost led to the Seahawks moving. Like, games that used to be sellouts were not being sold out. Back in those days, you had television blackouts if you didn't sell out your home game, and the Seahawks went a couple of years barely having any games shown on local TV because fans weren't going to the game. Why? The product sucked. This product, the Seahawks, in the last 20-something years under Allen ownership, there have been very few awful seasons. There have been a few mediocre ones, but it's been mostly good. And I can say that because this team has been to 4 Super Bowls under this ownership, won 2 of them, won countless other division titles, been in the playoffs so many times. They've developed, once again, one of the best fan base and loudest fan bases in the league. And after the Russ era, the Legion of Boom era, it went from this, Seattle's not a small market, but Seattle Seahawks are kind of insignificant in the landscape of the NFL, to inarguably one of the most popular brands out of all the NFL teams. So hats off to the Allen ownership for how long that they've had this team. trending in the right direction, and hopefully there is no monster who wants to undo it all.
And thank God we don't have an owner like Jerry Jones who just wants to stir shit up if he gets bored. And that just ruins teams and ruins fan bases.
Mm-hmm.
This is true. All right. Well, we've got a bunch of these, so we need to get through them so we can get out of our show here at a relatively good hour. So we got the 12s Q&A Blitz, which normally the three of you are a part of. So this is kind of cool to not have you guys a part of it tonight.
Give somebody else a chance, right?
Yeah, exactly. So what do we got here? We got a good one from Matt in Beaverton. Comes in with, how about the T-Knight and D-Law glitching the Matrix with repeat strip sack tutties? Yeah, that was
nice
actually a really good
that was really good too.
Even the announcers going, "What did that happen again? What?"
Exactly.
They were like, "It's deja vu."
Yeah, that was definitely a good one, Matt. I will give you that sequence there. And then one other play I didn't mention, Ernest Jones's retro jersey pick 6 versus Minnesota when Bryce underhanded it to him.
Good.
That was pretty good.
McVay screaming
any
into
highlight
his sheet too.
with Jones is good. Amy will attest to that. Any highlight.
Oh,
with
yes.
Jones is good.
Love it.
All right, Peter Go Hawks with a $50 donation. Thank you so much, Peter.
Nice.
Never been so stoked to have a great OC leave and have an unknown OC come in. I think this makes us an underdog in a lot of teams' eyes, and we will once again overcome the odds. If anybody has something to say about my new OC, I have 2 words for you. Well done, Peter.
Yes.
Well done.
Yes.
Thank you for the donation again, Peter. Always appreciate it. We've got one. Oh, this is interesting. The HHG comes in. I'll make Bryce future HC and Bad B and OC. Oh, gosh.
Bad B.
Oh, my.
What the hell is that? Bad Bunny?
Bad Bunny, no,
offensive
thank you.
coordinator?
Yeah,
that was
maybe.
a really well-coordinated halftime show. So
That was. He had more yards up and down the field than New England did. So maybe he goes to New England and takes, you never know. We got Peter back in here with another $2 donation. When do the Seahawks get their new rings? Need one. When do they normally do? Last time they did it was like April. They did their ring ceremony, didn't they?
All I know is that the trophy is taking 4 months to be engraved.
Yeah.
So I can't imagine that they'll be rushing through the rings.
I know they got size for the rings, but that's all.
They did.
I got a feeling, because if I remember correctly, with most teams, they do it like the week or 2 before training camp starts. Like they almost bring them back a little bit early to do the dinner and everything, and then everyone kind of gets situated back in the city before camp starts. So I would expect sometime around there, Peter.
Also, congrats being able to afford one of those things.
Yeah, no kidding, right? Like, frick, you look at the Rams one. Wasn't the Rams one that like popped off and had like the stadium inside of it? Like, the thing's going to be the size of their hand at this point. Like, that the Allen family is going to go all out for that one. So, Randy McDaniel in here with a $5 donation goes, if what we've seen with the coaching hires as an indicator, offseason will be fun. No resting on laurels. Mike, Mack, and John will push in draft and free agency and trades. Yeah?
I agree. I think they'll be very aggressive.
I think it's going to be interesting. I can't wait to watch John Schneider's show that he does with Dave and Bob on 710, because he did an episode today. Very interested to hear what John said about the Brian Fleury hire and the process behind that, because usually John gives some good tidbits in that. Randy back in with another $5 donation. Thank you again, Randy. Goes, Randy been a big fan of Marlon Humphrey since he took DK's lunch money on that fumble at home a few years back. We've seen cornerback get second life late in career. That was a good moment. I love, Randy, how you referred to yourself in the third person. Well done. Well done.
Well, I hope that if they do sign Marlon Humphrey, if it's the one we just saw, this is a Kerry Williams 2.0. Like that, he looked washed.
Yeah.
So hopefully, being in McDonald's defense, if he comes to Seattle, if he gets cut first and comes to Seattle, maybe it works out. But I'm mum on that one because of just how hard he fell off this past season. But frankly, so did a lot of Ravens defenders. The lack of a pass rush killed that secondary.
It really did. Randy back in with a $2 donation. Thoughts on Rico Dowdle as a free agent target? Physical. as a
Had
running
like
back.
4 good games and then tailed off. At the
Yeah.
end.
I wouldn't be big on him. Sorry, just not.
He's not my
There's no
cup of tea.
consistency there.
Yeah.
He's just like a few flashes.
No, agreed on that one. We got John in here with a $2 donation to repeat free agency draft needs to focus on Rams matchups. Ooh, that's a good point. Like when they go and
That's a
look at
good
this,
point.
they got to look of who they're going to have to deal with in their own division because you're going to have to win the NFC West, I think, to get a good playoff seeding again.
No, sure.
So
I hope we get Dunker.
I'd love to get Dunker. He looks so
I
good
would
in
love to have
Mobile.
him on this line.
Yes, and to your Bradford point, he would replace Bradford, John, and you would be able to sleep at night knowing Sam Darnold is protected.
It wouldn't happen quick enough, though, Bryce.
Okay, but O-line is about consistency.
True. And
There is a
continuity.
very good chance we run it right back with the same guys and that Bradford has time with good coaching to learn what he was missing. And to make himself, stronger or whatever he needs.
I agree with you, Amy. Consistency is super important, especially to repeat and do what we've already done. But I am not going to sit here and say you can't replace Bradford and still be consistent. That's just, to me, it doesn't make sense. He's made so many. And when you see mistakes on the line, it seems like 80% of the time it's him. And they're bad. They're really bad. They're not just little mistakes.
This is what I'll say, John. This is what I'll say is this is how I'll give Bradford, and I agree with you. A lot of the time, Bradford's bad reps are like, oh my God, these are horrendous.
They're terrible.
Reps. It's not like
they're screaming at the TV screen.
Yeah,
I
agree with you. This is what I'll say for Bradford in a bit of his defense, and it's to the same extent I'll say for Alex Smith when he was a quarterback in San Francisco to start his career. There has been no consistency in offensive philosophy for the Seattle Seahawks in Bradford's entirety of his career here. Every year it's been something new with an offensive coordinator. We had Shane Waldron. Then we had Ryan Grubb. Now he was on Clint Kubiak. And this will be the first time really for him there will be some continuity in play style and scheme. So I agree with you that he's not irreplaceable by any stretch. But what I will say is I don't know if there is, unless you can get a dunker, for an example, a guy that really could push him at right guard. I don't see there being any real free agents out there that you're willing to spend on where I look at it and go, yeah, okay, like I'm going to go fork out the money for that individual, right? I think Bryce Coutts is going to get more of a run at right guard this year than I think most people expect. And I look at it and I go, he's the last year of his deal. So he's in a contract year. He's going to have to prove that he's worth money because I don't think Seattle will necessarily give him an extension anyway. So unless there presents a better option right away for an upgrade, the continuity factor could be huge. But I do agree with you. He is definitely one of the more upgradable pieces to this offense to lose his job and have somebody else take it. I will go there with you on that. I just don't see a better option in the draft right now or in free agents to be like, yes, that is an immediate upgrade. Because look at Mekhi Becton and what happened last year. He moves on, and when he's not surrounded by, he was horrible with the Chargers, like absolutely horrible.
Yeah.
And I think Sundell will take a step forward at center. Gray Zabel will absolutely take a step. And Abe Lucas and Charles Cross are both back. Running the 5 back in continuity might be the best thing. And yes, Bradford will still have his bad reps where you're going to want to throw the remote at the TV. It will happen. And I will be there with you, my friend. You know what? There's our new island. The remote throwing Bradford Island is where me and John will reside this year.
I'd like to put Bradford on a remote island and just leave him somewhere. But I will say this: as much as I don't like Bradford, and as much as infuriating as he can be, I will concede that if there's nothing else better out there and you can't upgrade, then yeah, keep him and let him, give him another chance at least. But man, he's going to run out of chances pretty quick sooner or later.
I agree with you.
You're going to give him a chance to prove it, and he can't do it. So
I agree with you.
If he has another bad season, I think that's it for him.
Oh, 100%. This for him this year is all about whether or not he's going to be able to get himself some money, essentially, as a right guard. So It'll be interesting.
I'm not sure I buy
here.
the bit about different offensive coordinators because you could say the same thing about Cross and Lucas too.
True. But let's look at it. Okay, so with Cross and Lucas, I would say the one thing I'll push back. Lucas was injured for most outside of his rookie year, right? Like he's barely played. Cross did have moments where he went up and down in the same word as. So that's where I look at it. Like this is the first time in two aspects of this offense and key pieces of this offensive line where scheme continuity will be running back to back, where you're not going from, okay, we're trying to run the Sean McVay offense to now we're running this air raid thing from college to now we're going to the Shanahan tree to now, okay, we're staying in that tree and in that philosophy. And that's where I look at it and like Cross had is probably his best year this year in a lot of statistical ways.
Even in Grubb's one season, he switched back and forth between what he was doing with all of those guys. They started off doing normal stuff, then suddenly they're pulling, and and then when that worked, he abandoned it. So I think there is something to be said for having that consistency, but mostly it's the consistency of coaching, because these guys really desperately, even if they're good, they need that coaching consistency.
I would look at it. Amy, they do need that, but if you look at what specifically Bradford, if we're talking about him, he's been bad with everybody. Like he's had problems with every coach that's been training him and trying to get him to take that next step. He's still. He's gotten a little bit better, but he's still making the same bonehead mistakes.
I'll push back again on the coaching aspect of this. Outside of John Benton, look at who our 2 line coaches were during that tenure. It was Andy Dickerson, who had never really done it before, and it was Scott Huff, who isn't even doing it anymore. He's now a tight ends coach. So, again, this is where John Benton's factor, to your point earlier, how big it is to have Benton back, John, for a second year. You're getting an experience.
That is my one hope, is that Benton can finally figure out Bradford and make him better. If that happens, I'm all for keeping Bradford.
And I think Bradford was better this year. As much as he infuriated all of us at points, if you look at Bradford this year compared to Bradford last year or the year before, he was a much better guard this year. It still sucked at moments. Not going to argue that.
I agree.
But there was less of it to an extent. It was like it wasn't nearly as bad. It's like when you try and clean like your whiteboard off when you initially write something on it, the first couple times that it's great, but then you get that mark stain. Well, now we're finally clearing that mark stain a little bit, and Bradford's getting a little bit better, so it's not looking as bad.
I think the issue with Bradford is he's so polarizing. It's like when he's good, he's really good, and when he's bad, he's atrocious. And it's.
So you mean he's like Geno Smith?
You really gonna start that?
Let's get on the other train there. So let's not get train car hopping.
Sorry, I had to just throw that in there. It was just as soon as John started going that way, I was
like, "You just throw that bud."
Oh, just
you just threw a grenade into your own show.
That's my job. That's my job. Okay, Randy, $2 donation. He goes, I think we signed Khalil Mack, fits Mike McDonald's vet mold. Yeah, Khalil Mack could be an option.
Maybe. Like Jerry Jones of your own show, Bryce. Just kind of instigate stuff and cause some hype.
He could be an option. If you get him on the right deal. We're talking about Bradley Chubb. Khalil Mack could be someone that you look. It would have to be like on a very friendly deal for 1 year to see, but it's an option. I don't know if they go for it, but it's an option.
How is he character-wise?
Khalil Mack, I don't think he's ever had real character issues to my knowledge.
Okay.
Yeah. He's just had the misfortune of being on teams that make the playoffs and never win a playoff game. So like at least Tank won playoff games in Dallas, like 2 of them. But
don't go give him too much credit there. So we got Peter back in here. Goes Amy, one hand on the cough button, pushing through #Seahawks soldier. Yes, Amy has done fantastic tonight with that. What else do we got here? We got Mr. Bill comes in with, what about Bradley Chubb? And we kind of talked about that. I think he's a viable option. I think he is.
Yeah, like just as a rotational pass rusher. I don't need him to be the lead guy.
I don't think you lean on him as much with his history. I think he's just put him in there every now and then and really control how many plays he gets, and then he could be effective. But to lean on him and say he's your every down type of guy. No, absolutely not.
Dogzilla Monster in here with, I love how by the far the loudest crowd voice at Lumen Field was always Amy.
Oh, I'm
There you
loud.
go. I'm not surprised. I am not surprised at all. What do we got in here? We got WD Ford comes in. Hawkseye, the People's Pod. Yes, this is something we will do more frequently. We will get more of the people from the pod on the show to join me and Mookie and Michael Thompson at State of the Hawks throughout the offseason. But yeah, it'll be a fun little addition to the show every once in a while to have you guys come on. This has been a lot of fun tonight. What else do we got here? We've got Randy back in with a $5 donation. Lots of talk about the Super Bowl tax. In flip side, we may get the Super Bowl discount with free agents looking to compete for a ring and play for the best organization in the NFL. This is a true fact. And this is the Marlon Humphrey effect, I think. And I think you'll see it with some. If guys are chasing rings, you're not going to find a better place to do it than Seattle right now.
I think we've completely flipped that narrative of not being a desired destination in the NFL for players.
It's a desired destination for any Super Bowl champion should be a desired destination for free agents who are looking to go ring chasing. This is not the NBA or the NHL or Major League Baseball where, sorry folks, but like the Kansas City Royals are not going to be landing a $500 million caliber free agent anytime soon. But if the Jacksonville Jaguars or the Cincinnati Bengals or like a team that is not in a huge market or gets a lot of primetime games, if they ever become contenders perennially, guys are going to go to those teams. So the Seahawks are no different in that sense. That's how you ended up with Kevin Williams making a run with Seattle in 2014, and Jared Allen almost coming here that same year as well. That would have been a what if.
Well, and you had Antonio Winfield the year before that in 2013, where he tried to come in as a nickel corner. So
Antoine,
I agree with you
Antonio,
there.
but
Sorry, Antoine. Thank you. All right, we've got one here from Lil Ban goes, bold take. Jacardier Wright is the next Terrell Davis.
That's a very bold.
That's a bold take.
It's very bold.
I like Jacardier Wright, but that's a big leap.
That is a massive leap.
That's asking a lot. To say he's going to go from where he's at now to the next Terrell Davis, I don't see that happening.
But I'm interested to see what he can do. We just didn't have enough time to watch him.
Randy back in with another $5 donation. Man, Randy, you've been on it tonight, my friend. Thank you so much. Goes Adolphe Awe, a name to watch. Young dude who popped after the trade from Ravens. Mac knows him from Baltimore, former first-round pick. Still young guy with upside.
That's a player I was talking about earlier from the Ravens that you have to keep an eye on that they might be able to go get. I forgot his name.
Oh wait, yeah. I think the Chargers just re-signed him. Like they without him,
they did.
They got one pass rusher basically, and that's Tui Pelotu. Because once he went from the Ravens to the Chargers, that improved their defense. They would be foolish to just have their eggs in the Tui Pelotu basket if you move on from Mac and Owe.
Randy back in with a $2 donation goes, Job 3 years, $24 million, or Reek 4 years, $60 million. Who are you signing? Actually, I'll start with you.
The odds of Reek getting a $15 million a year contract are slim and none. So if you said 4 for 60, I would bite your hand off. So in the real world, Job would get that kind of, even 3 for 24 for Job is kind of like on the conservative side. But if it's like 3 for 30 for Joe, fine.
Yeah, of those two, I would definitely take Job with those two options because I'm not giving Reek that kind of money.
Amy, what about you?
Oh, I would take Reek. I don't think he's as replaceable as people think he is.
Fair enough. I think 4 at 60.
That's
4 at 60.
That's a little too rich.
Same bargain. So that's exactly why I'm not entertaining it. Is that is not going to happen? Like
That's not going to happen. Yeah, I agree with you.
I know. I was doing the math in my head for a second. I'm like, that's got to be
two options. That Reek, that 4 for 60. That's too much. Reek, if he came in at lower than that, I would be with Amy. Bring Reek back. But at those two options, Job.
I'm taking Job over those two, and I think Job fits Mike McDonald's scheme some ways in a better way. He's more. I don't know. He just seems to fit it, but we'll see. It'll be interesting to see what happens. So we've got this one from HGH. Go X-Wings looks like the
Wow.
wrecking $2 from Alvin and the Chipmunk.
I thought
I
we
had
were
to bring
friends,
this one.
man. That hurts.
Yeah, no kidding, right? Like, Jesus, you
Who
do
do you think
realize
is
they're all going to be
chocolate
back in
X-Wing
the
for,
chat
man?
with you, like in a couple of
Come on, man.
back in the chat with everybody. So, oh,
Very
boy.
nice.
We got
Don't make
Peter
it personal.
Gohawks back in here with the $2 donation. Goes, I think Walker takes a hometown deal personally.
I hope
Anyone?
so.
I
think he takes a
hope,
hometown
but-
deal?
I
I
hope
hope
he
so,
does.
but I could see him saying he wants to go back home and go to the Titans too.
It depends on how big a bag somebody dangles in front of him.
Yeah, exactly. Like you were saying earlier, Bryce. He's absolutely gonna play that Super Bowl MVP card and get as much as he can. So if it's not us, it's going to be somebody else.
Agreed. Randy back in with $2 goes, package 2 1s and Arroyo to Kansas City for number 10 and draft the running back out of Notre Dame. Love.
No.
Okay. Thank you.
Rejected and mad.
No,
So fast.
no,
Yeah.
I love
It's like
running
absolutely
backs.
not.
No.
absolutely not. I'm still waiting for a breakout season and games from Arroyo. I believe that's going to happen, especially with Fleury. I think he's going to be able to unlock that. I would not get rid of Arroyo at all until we've seen what he can do.
These
Agreed.
last two things that Randy suggested, those are some good chocolate edibles you're on, my dude.
And here's the other one. He goes
Not
$2
bad.
donation. This is the last one of the night. Brees Hall gets hurt and fumbles. Hard no for Randy.
He ain't lying.
I said it yesterday that we should appreciate the fact that Walker and Charbonnet combined
Yes.
for the 3 seasons together, 1 fumble out of over
One.
1,300 carries. Walker
Yep.
technically has 3 fumbles. One was the weird drop against Carolina that honestly didn't feel like a completed pass. And then the one where Waldron decided with our backup center in, it was time to do a direct snap to K9.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's stupid.
And then it was a low snap, and he gets dinged for not catching it cleanly. But like Walker's fumbled 1 time, Charbonnet's fumbled 0 times when they've had the ball on a running play, and that is remarkable.
And I love Sharps. I think Sharps is amazing running back. I really hope we keep him. I like him.
I
All right,
still don't
I got-
understand what made the Chicago Bears go, yeah, that's the guy that we want to put in charge of our brand new first overall pick quarterback.
Yeah, that didn't make a lot of sense. Yeah, who knows? This one's interesting for you, Mookie. Mr. Sean goes, Mookie, do you see similarities between how bad J.R. Sweezy was during his first few years and how Anthony Bradford? Feels like Bradford is Sweezy 2.0. Just want to know your thoughts.
Sweezy got a bag from Tampa Bay after
Mhm.
his
Yeah,
final year. So like Sweezy was probably a little bit better than Bradford in the sense that after having to convert Tom Cable's love of turning defensive players into offensive players, Sweezy's thing was just he would commit these really bad. I can't get out of my head that weird jumping on the pile personal foul penalty he took against
Oh,
Pittsburgh.
God, yeah.
So
The dog pile. Yeah.
Bradford doesn't normally commit bad 15-yard personal foul penalties. He'll commit other penalties, but Sweezy was probably the weak link on that offensive line and the way that Bradford is here. But like you can win with that as long as they're not game damaging bad on a weekly basis. But certainly you could upgrade again. You could have upgraded from Sweezy, and they kind of didn't for a while. And you can absolutely upgrade from Bradford. But like if Bradford stays, he's only got 1 year left on his deal. So at most, he's here for 1 more year. I doubt that he has a breakout year where he gets extended.
All right. Well, I think considering we ran a little over tonight, just because we had our special guests with us, the final whistle here. So I want to thank John, Amy, and X-Wing for coming and joining us on the show tonight.
Yep.
It was a lot of fun to have you guys here.
Thank you for having us.
Thank
Really
you.
appreciate you
Yeah,
giving us
thanks
this
for having us
opportunity,
on.
guys.
It's definitely fun to get your guys' insight, just not from the chat and typing it, but actually have you guys here to have the conversation.
Can I say one thing really quick?
Sure, go for it. Amy.
If any of you guys out there are in Seattle tomorrow, I think there's still tickets for Hot Bloggers event tomorrow. I will be there. If you go, come say hi.
Nice.
Sounds like a good event. I think he's also kind of doing his book reveal there too, or he's already done.
Book signing and
signing.
Simply Seattle pop-up shop. And it's going to have Brady Henderson and Mike Sando also.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
There you go. So if you've got nothing to do on a Friday night and you love your Seahawks, go out and check that out. But outside of that, I'm going to thank you guys for being on here. Mookie, what's going on over at Field Goals?
Well, eventually, I'm going to finish up part 2 of my journal, which chronicles my Super Bowl week down in the San Francisco Bay Area. So that will hopefully be up sometime on Friday. But next week, we get into combine coverage. No, Field Goals will not have any representation on site in Indianapolis this year, but maybe for future years. Just the lack of draft picks is a strong reason to not go scout too many college prospects this year. But you can expect a lot of draft stuff over the next couple of months from not just myself, but Bryce and Alexandre Castro and Michael Thompson, the whole shebang. You're going to get a lot of – be prepared for all the mock drafts, more mock drafts than you can possibly handle. But these are going to be mock drafts grounded in reality.
Yeah, that'll be the thing. Well, I'm going to Vegas this weekend, so I won't be able to react to any of the Seahawks news if there is any over the weekend. So I'm taking a little bit of a vacation to go coach some football in Vegas. But I'll be back next week. I will have me and Michael Thompson will start our draft positional breakdowns for Seahawks players that we're interested in, as well as I will be doing a live show Friday night next week with Curtis Allen of Seahawks Draft Blog, breaking down the salary cap and how some of these contracts will work. So make sure you guys come on over and join that conversation. And then the following week, post-combine, I will have Greg Bell on to break down everything that's kind of happened with Seattle since the Super Bowl victory. So with all of that being said, and everybody that's on the chat right now and in the channel here with me, we're going to do the same thing we do every night. We're going to stay loud, be proud, and go Hawks.
Go Hawks.
Go Hawks.
Have a good night, everybody.